but you might hear me repeat some of the stuff I just said.
That's
Um,
okay.
I'll probably kick it off with the Brittany Murphy thing because I'm a very bad judge at who's seen a movie. And if I already think that no one's seen this movie, that means no one has. If you've heard of it, it's because of Brittany Murphy for some reason.
I
That's it.
definitely think no one has
Yeah,
heard of this movie. I tried to look it up beforehand, and there's a few videos about it on YouTube, but mostly
it's
like
barren.
for
We
any.
will, like, hands down, the most comprehensive video on Cherry Falls will be
Well,
ours for no reason.
you say that, but there's actually another hour-long video I came across
What?
on Cherry Falls. Yeah, there's an hour-long analysis of Cherry Falls. You should check it out. I didn't watch the whole thing. I kind
Who
of
is
skimmed
this
through.
person? They
I
should
don't
collab, you know?
I know I don't remember her name, but it's there's a really comprehensive. I only caught like 5 minutes of it. About I only found it like an hour before this call.
See, there are
Because I
true
was like,
believers out there.
well, because I was thinking, I'm like, I wonder if anyone on YouTube has talked about this movie, and I was expecting like the scene of YouTube that's like 4 minute videos from like really hardline horror fans.
There is one of those. I saw that.
Yeah, yeah, like not quite like the kill count like type accounts, but
No.
like the people that do like that their videos are set up like ours where it's like slideshows of screen caps from the movie and they're just
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's pretty good. I was expecting that, and then I came across this 1 hour analysis. I was like, damn, I'm impressed. Uh,
So there's precedence for
yeah,
this.
there's precedent. There's We're not quite the groundbreaking channel.
Yeah, just let me know when we're recording so I can
Oh, we're
go into
recording
it.
now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool. Well, we were talking a bit when this wasn't being recorded about how I think, well, where do you start with Cherry Falls? I think obviously you start with the church, the cult of Brittany Murphy, because if there's a reason people know about this movie, it's most normally fans of Brittany Murphy. And as I was telling Jacob when we weren't being recorded, I love Brittany Murphy. She put me through adolescence. She's a great childhood crush, and I think that she made some really interesting and some really terrible movies during her career. But something like Cherry Falls, the most exciting thing about it for me is to see like there really was some some offbeat curiosities to her performance here, and that stuff you could see in some of her other earlier films, whether it's like Freeway or Girl Interrupted or Clueless, even. Like you could see it there. And she's really fun in this movie. She's really, as a final girl, it's kind of the, it's one of the most like awkward and weird and oddly erotic fucking final girls I've ever seen. The weirdest facial expressions ever. And I was listening to the commentary with Jeffrey Wright today, and he was even saying like, Brittany was good to work with. She does get exhausted very easily. So I'm like, what is she getting exhausted from? And then when you watch it, I feel like she trances out some of the time. Like
I feel like
there's
a lot of people in this movie tranced out during the shoot, but
whenever Brittany Murphy has like an erotic an erotic seduction scene in a movie, she does this weird like fucking like possessed trance like hypnotic like
yeah,
perverted fucking thing. Like she does it here in Cherry Falls in a scene that almost gave me a foot fetish, but it didn't somehow. But it almost did.
it's
And
such a
she does the
weird
same
scene.
fucking thing in 8 Mile. She does this weird thing with her with her face where it kind of goes into weird like the Kubrick stare but horny, you
That
know.
that scene has one of my favorite lines in the movie too, uh, because remember, like at the beginning of the movie, his name is Kenny, right? The boyfriend.
uh yeah, I'm pretty
Some
sure played by
and
Gabriel Mann, I can tell you that.
and at the beginning of the movie, he's just a piece of shit, and then the movie tries to swerve and make him a hero that you feel bad for
It
at the end.
completely swerves.
But
That
but
first
she
scene, you
but
go
she
on.
turns him down for sex, or she tries to seduce him. And he's like, "You just want to have sex with me to get back at your parents. This isn't what I want." Which, of course, the beginning of the movie is he's basically trying to pressure her into doing it. So it's so weird. But she says, "Kenny, I had no idea your poor mind was so diseased."
That is so good. Her
And
delivery is so good.
it's so funny. I was like, "What? what am I fucking watching?
Suck on my
She
toe while I kick your face.
Yeah, yeah, she was like kicking him in the head. I was like, geez, this is very much what people that write movies called Cherry Falls think is erotic. This is
That is so true. That has to be so true. The other elephant in the room when talking about Cherry Falls is that the actual, like, intended cut of the movie, the studio's claim has been lost, but
Oh, is that the case? I
Jeffrey
didn't know
Wright
that.
says, no, it's not lost. They've misplaced it and they won't release it. So Cherry Falls wasn't released theatrically in the US. It was released theatrically overseas and in Australia, I believe, where Jeffrey Wright is from. In America, they couldn't get past the censors board, and the studio had such low faith in the property that eventually they just said, fuck it, we're going to telecast it on USA Network. It is to this day still technically the most expensive made for television movie or television movie ever.
So what you're saying is we got to get a release the Snyder cut of Cherry Falls movement going.
I would be totally supportive of that, because
If
there's like parts in
HBO
the
Max,
commentary where he's like, oh, there's just so much more gore, so much more sex, like there's a lot of sex at the fuck fest. I'm like, Jesus, Jeffrey, why?
there's
Why?
there's a 4-hour HBO Max version of Cherry Falls. I'm not surprised he's that much of a creep though, given the movie's premise is that the climax of the movie is a bunch of teenagers having sex.
Well, his claim to fame was that Romper Stomper Russell Crowe skinhead movie from Australia. He's kind of got a few
No
screws
idea.
loose already. It was fun, but it's still like a almost a glorified skinhead movie. It's a good movie, but it's one
Jesus.
of those one of those questionable ones where, like, you might think Russell Crowe is cool in the movie because he kind of is cool in the
Jesus.
movie. But Jeffrey Wright directing Cherry Falls. Oh man, okay. Okay, so I do like the normal thing that we do where or at least we did this with Urban Legend and kind of on the faculty, where we went like kill by kill, but we can't really do that here because there's not,
There
we
are
get
many.
introduced to all these archetypes and then they all like live essentially. Most of them
Yeah, yeah,
live.
most of them live and the ones that die don't have any like
The ones that
preceding.
die like remind me of the criticisms of Jalo. Like, I know we just did like Tenebrae, but there was like the effeminate
Oh, you
gay
mean like,
kid
yeah, yeah,
and
you mean like people either like completely out of the plot or people that are just like, do you just want to see gay people die? It
which is
has that
so
vibe.
weird because part of the selling point of this movie was it was supposed to satirize the conservative like nature of horror movies. So they're like, so in this movie, like the conceit, the premise is that if you have sex, you live, and if you don't, you die. You get killed if you're a
Yeah.
virgin. They wanted to make it like a bit more of a liberal horror movie when the characters that they do outright kill are like kind of like these bimbo high school girls who aren't given anything to do, and this extremely flamboyantly gay kid. Like, it kind of reinforces the conservative stereotypes at the same time. It's kind of
My favorite part
uh
about that is that you don't actually find out how the killer knows they're virgins either.
no, he just like he just assumed that that one gossip column kid was gay. Like, there was no
Yeah,
reason.
he's gay. He's probably fine. He's
That's another funny bit on the commentary, because there's that one scene where that couple is yelling at each other in the cafeteria about the boyfriend telling
yes.
everybody that like, she gave him a blowjob, and he's like, and see, we put Jay Moore's character here. Oh, see, I am doing an Australian. It only
Oh
took me a
yeah.
matter of time before I start to mimic him in a
Once you're
kind
on
of.
camera, you're like David Boreanaz. Just as soon as you're on camera, it all comes out.
Oh, I have theories that they just made him do that out of cruelty on Angel. But he's like, you see, we had Jay here, so this way he's walking away with her, and he's probably asking her about her sexual act. Like, he's kind of implying that, like, this is how he knows that she's a virgin, and it's like that. You don't have. Oh God. Here's the weird thing. I can criticize this movie a lot. I also like it a lot. I think it's an interesting. Would you say it's a successful satire or an attempt at satire?
I I think it is an attempt for a minute. I think the first half is an attempt at it, and then by like the second half, it just gives up trying, and it tries to actually be like this. That's the weird thing about it for me is that like um some movies like this where it tries to like be tongue in cheek, but the effort to be tongue in cheek, it has to take the joke as far as it possibly can. And
Yeah.
then it always reaches the point where it becomes too real and you're like, "Oh no. Oh no." But it does, I think, become too real, but the first half is some of the funniest shit I've watched all year.
It really is, and it might take itself. It might buy into its own joke near the end, but there
Yeah,
are some interesting little bits of because it's essentially like satirizing the kind of trend of slasher movies that was going on in the mid to basically between 1995 and 2005, like kind of satirizing how popular those movies had gone and the tropes inside of them. But I think it's a satirization that attempts to expose the hypocrisy of like small towns and that kind of thing.
yeah,
But there is some cool
I did get
iconography. Like there is deliberate Civil War iconography everywhere. Not everywhere, but
yes.
at a few places. Like most notably, Robert E. Lee's portrait is in the sheriff's office. And I know that that was a deliberate thing to do to kind of like show the hypocrisy. Or Jay Moore, when he's revealed, he calls it like a stinking hypocritical world where like rapists and murderers become pillars of the community. So he's trying to deprive them of the only innocence they have left. And I guess that is a kind of clever, subtle way of showing these kind of, well, inarguably like vicious men of history
Yeah, yeah.
being pillars of like being the ones who built this town. It's set in Virginia, so of course that's where like Robert E. Lee is from. It was a big Civil War thing, but that is clever. I got to give it to that. I got to give it that
Yeah,
much.
no, it definitely goes for it. I think more is that like by the second half, it then like indulges itself in the same like hypocrisies because of course your villain of the movie is like a queer-coded man.
Yes,
Like it's the Silence of the Lambs thing, but yeah, it's like
but a part of
totally.
me thought that was a satire, though. I thought it was just so
I couldn't
outrageous.
tell. I couldn't tell.
That's why I watched it with the commentary, but Jeffrey Wright doesn't act like it's a joke when they're doing it. He just says, Jay did such a great job here. Like, to me, it felt so outrageous that it had to be a joke, but the filmmaker's commentary didn't lead me to any more evidence of that. Like, it might have been
No,
a
for
serious
sure.
thing.
I definitely think it was like at least somewhat serious. Or I presume that in like his mind it's like, well, why would we satirize that? Is probably what was going on in his mind, like compared to like the more like jabs at criticisms of conservatism in slasher movies, which of course has been a thing ever since Friday the 13th. But like that I think is a very
Yeah.
clear like target for him, for sure. But I don't know if he was super conscious of the rest of it.
It just feels so outrageous, though, because it is Jay Moore. He's a comedian, like from SNL and
yeah.
Go. Like, it
Did you
looks so outrageous
did you
that
notice he has a giraffe tattoo
I
also?
did. He didn't say anything about that either on the commentary.
I assume there's a reason for
I
it,
assume
but
it might
yes.
be his tattoo since he didn't say shit about the
Oh,
tattoo
that's
on his
too good to
arm.
be true. That's too good to be true.
Well, he
He
didn't
had
say a word.
I like to think like while teaching summer school that Leonard Marlston was just wearing like a white polo and he just had like a giraffe tattoo in class. In
One
the
thing he did say on the commentary that I was picking up, like I picked up other vibes that I guess, okay, if you don't take the whole killer of this movie as farcical, I think it's a farce still. If you view it as farcical, then it's okay. If we don't, it becomes intensely problematic near the end. So you might think that it aged poorly. Another part that didn't age the way it was intended to age, and the director even admitted as such, was when like three of their classmates die, they do this little memorial at the high school, like in memory of, like, we miss you guys. And even Jeffrey Wright had enough self-awareness to go like, and this hit a little too close to home because this film was made like following Columbine, and
yeah,
then all of the school shootings that came, like this scene was a bit, yeah, that scene has
yeah,
a bit of a stronger historical feel to it now that wasn't intended when the movie, I know that that part wasn't intended at least to be a reflection of Columbine.
yeah.
but that's definitely the way it feels. Let's talk about some of the fucking weird shit in this movie.
Uh, the first
That
that
is not developed.
the first that stood out to me was the teacher going up behind a student, taking a scarf and tying him up, tying up his mouth with it.
So it has to be all farce because he's like, he gets so mad at the class for saying all this stupid shit. And he goes, Jody, I know you can say something singularly productive and useful. It's like, who says that? Wow, that's so much pressure. That kid, I loved that character. That
Oh,
kid who
the kid that was talking shit.
I believe the actor's name is Michael Weston. I don't know. He's a great like TV actor. For anyone listening, he's on the best episode of 6 Feet Under called like That's My Dog. He was in Garden State as well, and he's actually a really good actor.
I
Um,
think he's the only one of the character, like the core characters, core cast of characters that actually has sex at the party too. If I
well,
remember
yeah,
correct,
yeah.
unless I'm forgetting someone, but you see he does get away with it and then he covers himself up once the bloodshed starts. He's the only one that doesn't leave the house. The
That's true.
killer's running around, he just covers himself with a blanket.
There's so many jokes that are still funny today because he has to give her like all his CDs and his like game station and all sorts of shit. I still love
Yes.
DJ Qualls, like a relic of 2001. Going up to that girl and being like, "So, do you?" His only line of the movie that isn't like overdubbed, like, "Do you play Deathquake?" And she said, "Okay, but you have to wear a rubber," or something weird like that. It was great. It was great.
I
But
love
the
that.
weirdest part of the movie that isn't developed for me is the deliberate sexual tension between Brittany Murphy and her father, played by Michael Bain.
I wasn't sure if I was just imagining it or if it's
Well,
something
I
that's
didn't know if
supposed
it
to
was
be there.
deliberate. So once again, commentary, he did help me out there. That was deliberate. Um,
Thank you, Jeffrey. Oh.
thanks, Jeff.
I
You're
said beforehand, I don't know if we were recording, but I said Jeffrey Wright only did the recording for people like us who are go
One day there'll be YouTube videos
because
made about this.
who the fuck else is gonna who else out there is saying I want with their Criterion closet movie shelf saying I want to listen to the Jeffrey Wright commentary for Cherry Falls. I want to
Oh
know what was
God.
going through his mind. I want to learn from this. But yes,
The
go
weirdest
on.
thing is that it's not developed. So like, okay, he's teaching her how to defend herself, some self-defense, because he's like the
Oh
town sheriff,
yeah,
so he should
yeah.
know
I
these
actually forgot
things.
about this.
And Brittany Murphy actually does some really cool, like the stuff that made people fall in love with her. Like she growls playfully for no fucking reason, and then it gets a bit too flirty when he falls on top of her, and then there's like an extra second where they're like mouth to mouth almost, just looking in each other's eyes, and then someone knocks at
Yeah.
the door, like the phone rings, and you're like, ooh, what was that? Then the sexual tension is like a little bit um you at least think about it again when her father realizes that virgins are being killed, so he goes to her room and asks her, hey, so how far have you gone with your boyfriend? Can you go further though?
I-
And she's
She
like, you,
says, "Are you
yeah, say it.
disappointed I'm still a virgin?" That was what got
Perfect.
me because I really believed the only time I believed in Michael Biehn in this movie, by the way, who otherwise doesn't seems to be treating this movie like he's on like a student film, but
Oh yeah.
is I believe the thing where he's like, could you go further? Because like I'm like, all right, you're doing gymnastics around the question because you don't want to ask her outright. But it's the fact that she says, are you disappointed in me? And he says, no, honey. And he's okay with her asking that question. That's where I started reevaluating what I was watching. That's when
That's when
I
I got scared because I was like, how fucked up is this gonna get? Is he gonna like force himself on his daughter to save her life? I don't want that story,
I,
please.
I really thought it was gonna get worse, but the weird part is that they just sort of drop it.
That's it. No
That's
more
it.
from there. Who knows what the
Al-
uncut version holds?
although something similar happens way more over when at the very beginning of the movie, our introduction to her when her boyfriend is flirting with her mom.
Yes.
which is a scene I actually loved watching. I thought that was hilarious. But
Oh my God.
because
Everyone's horny in this movie.
he just broke up with this girl and then immediately starts flirting with her mom right in front of her.
Yep. It's the horniest fucking slasher movie I think I've
It's
seen in a while,
so
with the most awkward ideation of what sex and eroticism is. Like, it doesn't
yes,
know
yes,
what it
yes.
is at the same time. But
There,
Brittany Murphy has some cool, what I call like Murphy signature moments. Another moment that I like love that gets me amped is like, it has to be improv, like Jay Moore and Brittany Murphy trying to out crazy each other, like when she's tied up, and like she just starts screaming, and like he starts screaming too and runs over to her, and she like tries to like bite his face off. They're like yelling, screaming in each other's open mouths, these huge open mouths screaming at each other. I'm like, Jesus Christ, no wonder she gets exhausted. Like, this is her normal reaction, this is her choices as an actress, is just to bite her character's face. Okay, it's wonderful.
it's
That's a great
great.
moment. Oh my God.
Also, when
But
she attacks the killer with a giant shark.
yeah, I really like that scene actually, because they could have psychoed it at that moment. It was within the cards.
Yeah, I mean
I actually
they do
believed it.
eventually psycho it, but
Yeah, but in a way that, a joke might not be a good joke if you can't tell if it's a joke.
yeah, yeah,
Because we can tell the rest is a farce. It's just that, like, if the rest is a farce, why don't we assume that that part's a farce? Because the shot composition of the rape that the whole movie's a revenge for are done kind of earnestly. These aren't
yeah.
done
Which, to be fair,
satirically.
I found like profoundly uncomfortable, especially given how I think just how out of touch it was with the rest of the movie.
Hmm.
Because the first half of the movie again was outrageous, and then I get to the second half of the movie, I'm like, oh, this isn't funny anymore, and it just became a very dark, uncomfortable experience from that point on. But it was very out of nowhere.
Well, it's weird. It's like I want to give Jeffrey Wright the benefit of the doubt, because I've criticized like people like Rob Zombie for these same like things with tonality. But I want to. We'll go back to it.
Yeah,
We'll see, because that is a questionable bit, and I know specifically that scene was a lot longer and harder to endure in the original cut. I
yeah.
know that for a fact.
That's probably a cut for the better, but
Probably.
it
um
yeah, it's such a swerve the whole movie the second half takes towards this genuinely dark place that I feel like Jeffrey Wright definitely doesn't realize, or at least
no,
maybe he indulged in
because
too
it was
much of the
weird. Like,
horror that makes light of those things.
I've read other articles where like the rape was supposed to be like spoken of, but Jeffrey Wright demanded on filming it as well. Like, it
Yeah,
was just supposed to be said
yeah,
with like,
that's a lot.
yeah,
That's a
that
lot.
is a lot. That is a lot. But it's not like the humor goes to waste, though. It gets fucking insane when when the killer shows up to the fuck fest that is called in the film, where all the kids go to lose their virginity, to save their lives, or just to like get laid. I don't know if these kids really value their lives that much. That's not really like made too clear.
It's a
They,
heavily implied they don't, actually,
it is, isn't
because
it?
most of them go just because they want to have sex. That's the
Yeah, I
funniest
love
part.
the character I like so much. Forget his stupid fucking name, but he's like in the car smoking weed, and he's just, it sucks that like our friends lost their lives, but this is pretty choice.
No,
Like,
that's a good
I
line.
wish next time some psychopath will kill girls that don't give head.
It's it's so twisted. It's so twisted. But I don't know, in a
And
way
like, your
that's
final girl, like the girl you're supposed to be relating to, has, like, as we've said, established weird sexual tension with like every male in her life that she interacts with. It's like
y-
really weird.
it's
Jay Moore, who turns out to be her half brother.
yes, 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 yes. I forgot they do. They have this weird sexual tension.
They do, and that's like I think the most chemistry of the movie is between them, like overwroughtly quoting T.S. Eliot to each other.
I actually made a point while watching to write that down so I don't forget in case you did. That weird fucking scene where she just starts quoting T.S. Eliot, and it's really uncomfortable to watch, and he looks so proud of her.
And he finishes the quote. They say it together near the end. It's so
Yeah,
fucking
like
crazy.
he seems so proud of her, and then she says, "Can we talk again in private?" And he says, "Of course." And I'm like, what is happening in this movie?
There are a couple funny bits. Like I love where and when Michael Bean finds the principal killed, and it says on his forehead, "Virgin not." Like, that completely breaks your rule. I get that it's revenge, but like, holy shit!
The
Like they didn't even stick to their premise for long enough. Um,
the principal has a great scene where where he's, I think you already mentioned it, but where Michael Bean wants to reveal to the parents what's happening, and he calls like a meeting for all the parents, and then he says, "We're gonna have a goddamn fuck fest on our hands."
yeah, that's the only time I think someone swears in the movie because I think the rest
Yeah,
were all edited out. Um,
and is that also the scene where they say Hyman Holocaust?
Yeah, that's what her friend tells her later on. It's gonna be a Hyman Holocaust, Jody. That's so. This movie was probably almost called Hyman Holocaust. I would,
I
but
wouldn't
still,
be.
Cherry Falls means the same thing. It's a
It
bad
does.
pun.
It's
Oh,
I wish I got it before watching the movie. I think you mentioned to me what the premise was, but I kind of forgot. And so when I watched the movie, I was like, I don't actually know what this movie is about. And I took the Cherry Falls thing to be kind of like a Twin Peaksism. And then halfway through the movie, I just went, oh my God,
it's
I get
weird.
it
I can
now.
tell.
Like,
Like
I get it now.
you brought up Twin Peaks, and like I don't like David Lynch too much, but I can tell that Jeffrey Wright, I think, does, but I can also tell he doesn't understand him. And
Oh,
like,
yeah. I
I
mean,
really like the mistranslation because it's more in line with what I'm into.
yeah,
But
I mean, I could talk endlessly about like how people misreading Twin Peaks led to so many
oh
horrible movies and horrible essays that
yeah,
David
but
Lynch went out
Cherry
of his
Falls
fucking way. Yeah.
led to a
Cherry Falls is probably the worst of them all.
no, no. Cherry Falls is so good. I mean, how could it not be good when a man in a wig runs into a fuck fest and yells "class dismissed," and then
Missed.
terrible like trash club music that sounds like it's from the first Devil May Cry game like hits in, and he just goes just
It's
crazy on all these people with a razor
and it's
blade.
really poorly shot, that whole sequence too, because I was like, I was trying to figure out if people were actually dying in that scene or if they were
Here's the
just
thing. I
running
will
away.
grant we have to grant him this much. That was probably a lot more a lot better expressed in the original cut, like when
Oh,
he could show a lot more gore.
we're we're gonna go down that road. Like, I'm sure it looked great in the original. I
um I am
I
down
don't
the road.
know.
I got
I
a
mean,
hotel at the road. I bought property here on this road called Cherry Falls. Is a good movie.
I'm sure it's incredibly coherent in the original version. The
It's so
original,
good. In fact, Jay Moore's character turns the camera and winks and says, "I'm a joke." Get it? It's so good. It's so good. You
yes.
just haven't seen it yet. Um,
God. What other quotes have we forgotten that are funny? Oh,
um,
by the way, I brought up my notes on the movie, and I just had a note that said, "Why boyfriend so horny?" Because
why is he so horny and then so like not interested in sex the second
it's
two
they
women throw themselves
really
at him?
they make him out to be the most obviously horrible person. Like, just such a terrible boyfriend, so characteristic of like guys that age, and just tried so hard to redeem him. So much so that it goes out of character. They do like so many front flips to make it happen. It's
Man,
weird.
I
He
love
literally
him
goes to have
cheesing with his
he
electric guitar. I love
Oh
it.
yeah, I was about to bring that up. He's just going off like he's the coolest motherfucker. And then he's just sitting with her for some reason, eating her foot. I don't
That's
know why.
probably my favorite scene in the movie. There's a
It's
lot
it's
of
the one. I wouldn't call it my favorite. I'll just say it's the one that's had the most lasting impact on me, in that I can't stop thinking about how weird it is.
yeah.
It's just so weird. Both of them. It's where both characters just make this massive shift.
It is somehow it's believable with like okay. How would you describe Jodie? How would you describe Brittany Murphy's character? Like I
she wants to fuck her dad. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I think I would describe her the same way.
Like, it's really weird.
And like that's, I mean, it's terrible finding out that your father has done some terrible things, but I think she's even more so crushed because that's her ideation of the perfect man. But I know that, I mean, I know that's an actual trope or an actual
Yeah,
psychological
yeah, yeah.
thing.
I mean,
But
again, it's again ripped right out of Twin Peaks to some degree, but what one thing I was thinking about is like you don't really know what her role is in this high school. Like you don't know how
no,
people feel about her or think of her. It's very weird. She seems like very outside the culture of the school in a way. It's interesting, but also like bizarre.
she really is. Well, I don't know. I believe that production was rushed on this movie too, but at the same time, I don't think that she had enough scenes with her classmates outside of like the
I
one
agree.
female friend, and I don't think Michael Biehn had a scene with his wife.
He doesn't. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. I also thought about that because I remember thinking in like some 25, 30 minutes into the movie, I thought like, are her parents divorced?
I
Or
mean,
like,
that first scene where she goes up the stairs after her mom and her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, flirt with each other. He's like sitting there in the dark, waiting for her there. Another thing they don't develop further is I'm pretty sure she was sleepwalking when she that night where she like woke up and like walked over to the window. Like I thought she was sleepwalking or something. They did a few
yeah,
cool red I thought they were interesting little red herrings here and there with maybe Brittany Murphy is just a fucking psycho.
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
also appreciate when we find out it's her boyfriend standing outside of Mr. Marlston's door while they're reciting poetry to each other, and she goes, "I saw someone right there," but we don't see what she saw. So I thought that was
Oh, that
nice.
makes I actually didn't catch that, but that makes sense because he says he saw them later. That makes sense. That makes sense. I
Yeah,
that went right over my head. I guess Jeffrey Wright is too complicated for my tiny brain. I totally missed that. I truly a film that rewards return visits.
I've I've watched it now 3 times in a week. You know,
I'm pretty sure you're the first person to watch it 3 times.
I don't think the editors watched it 3 times in a week,
Uh,
based on some of these weird cuts here and there.
it
But
it is the first half is very bizarre. Like I felt like I was making so much effort to figure out who was who in this world and what their relationship was. I thought the mom was a neighbor at first, I think. I'm pretty sure they call her mom, but for some reason my brain went immediately to she's a neighbor. I think because she was flirting with her boyfriend, so I was like, that's no way that's her mom. I must have misheard. I was like,
one of the jokes, actual jokes, I think landed really well was when Michael Bean held the conference or the meeting for all the parents, where he
oh
told them that
yeah.
like someone's out there killing virgins, and someone's like, "What are you telling me I have to do? I have to lock up my daughter in the basement so she's safe?" And someone else says, "I wouldn't worry about that, Daniel."
That scene's really the highlight of the movie for me.
That's good. And then like for I feel that one that the gay character, the outrageously gay one, was killed for no good reason.
Yeah,
I
that was
actually
that.
wanted to spend a little more time with him. He was kind
I
of charismatic.
I felt the same way. No, I wanted to spend more time with that character. I really liked him. I thought he was funny, but he's only in the movie for those two scenes, that and his introduction at the beginning. You're like Donnie Darko scene of like introducing everyone at the school, and I I was really hoping he would last longer.
Me too. He even has an off-screen death. But then I do like the chase that ensues. There's a lot about this movie I like genuinely do like. There's some of it I ironically like, or a lot of it I
I
ironically like.
I don't know. So much of the movie, even the parts that I like, feel kind of discordant in different ways. Like that scene, that chase scene, is so weird because there's about 100 parents like 20 feet away, not aware that this is going on. And
Well,
also, I
can't you
don't.
see that's just about a metaphor for like
Her
the
parents
ignorance
are
of the
blind.
parents? Yeah.
Also, that why was she there so late? Because it's like 8 o'clock at night, I think, and she's just at school having a meeting with her teacher. It's really weird, unless I missed something.
I think she was trying to seduce her teacher a little
Oh,
bit.
of course, I forgot.
I mean,
I mean, it's a step up from Kenny, I guess, your English teacher, but
what's in the trunk, Mr. Marlston? Your dad. Your dad's in the maybe my dad. Who knows? Like,
God.
Jesus. Yeah, it's a farce. It's gotta be a farce. Then he goes outside on the porch to like meet Kenny, which he definitely didn't have to do. He could have just let Kenny knock and not answer the door.
He said the goddamn bell or something. He was just
Yeah.
mad that it was someone kept ringing the doorbell. And it's weird because it's his house, not what's her name, Jody's house.
And he makes fun of Kenny for stuttering, and then he says, "I wear makeup so I look pretty," and tries to stab him.
Who among us? I don't know. I thought that was kind of a vibe. I was like, damn, maybe I like this guy.
Yeah, see. Or what about they run from his house and they get stopped by a cop and they're like, "You don't understand, my dad's dead, the sheriff's dead, and it's Mr. Marlston, he's on his way, you gotta go get help." And he's like, "I can't, this is my post, I can't just split."
And then he
And
gets split.
his head split by an axe. It's a farce. It's all a
That's
farce, and I think it's a decent farce.
that's also a funny moment because it cuts to the deputy, I think. I don't know if she's even named in the movie. Who and he tells her like the sheriff's dead, and it does this weird House of a Thousand Corpses like blur effect over her, but it only
Yeah,
lasts
yeah.
like 1 second of the film.
Oh,
Where
the slow
like
motion. I get what you mean by discordant. Like, there's not
yeah,
a
yeah,
rhythm
it's like
to these
it's literally
shots.
one shot that lasts I think 1 or 2 seconds of everything suddenly going motion blur because she hears her partner, like the sheriff she works with, is dead, and it just cuts away from her, and you never know how she felt about it. It's really weird. It's just all these weird stylistic touches that I don't
And
like. Suddenly, the school is empty. It turns into a Dario Argento movie where you keep running through the school, but there doesn't seem to be an exit to the school, and it's so
it's,
weird.
I think the word you're looking for is brilliant, brilliant satire that that is very, very arguably an unsuccessful satire ultimately, but it's one I really appreciate. I appreciate it when I see where movies kind of fail in their
Yeah,
premise, and this one did that. But oh boy, did Jeffrey Wright like take the whole pill. Like he tried,
he
he
committed.
went, he committed like I haven't seen anybody do to a joke that might not be that funny. And I have to like really applaud a lot of the filmmaking here actually, that little effect you were just talking about with the slow motion and stuff, like they bring that back. They do that like several times, and it's not part of a rhythm of a scene. It doesn't complement the composition. um like right before Jay Moore dies, like they do a little like flashback for like 1 second of him being a nice teacher, and they're staring each other in the eyes
That's
like it's a
right.
fucking
Yeah,
shootout.
that's right. Yeah.
And then, okay, another joke that I liked a lot, and it's the one that Jeffrey Wright said, like, after all of this, he's like, okay, this might have been a little too over the top, was when Jay Moore is like impaled on that fence or whatever outside the house, um, and one of the characters that we know and love comes around and is like touching him and stuff. And they're like, get away from him, he's probably still alive. And he like does that boogeyman thing where he comes back from the dead, and
Yeah.
the opposite we were just talking about, like double guns him to death, like just
Yeah, she,
empty.
she dual wields him. She dual wields him. That's
And here's the part where Jeffrey Wright said, here's where we took it too far, was when it pans over all the kids. When we get to the kid who was closest to him, like the hand is still like severed from Jay Moore's body, but stuck in his hair. So he's like, he's sitting there with like a severed hand on his head. And that's the point where Jeffrey Wright was like, okay, maybe this was too far. But all the other stuff, that fit in Jeffrey Wright's
yeah,
vision
that
of
that
like
was
a perfect
exactly how
movie.
he predicted that. Right before that scene too is the one where there's a set piece involving a congested staircase where
Yes.
everyone keeps running over that deputy cop, and they're like killing her by trying to get out, and people start breaking the sides of the staircase and trying to push through, and it's funny because they're all in their fucking underwear running.
and they just crush each other. It's like that's like a bad 70s college joke, and it's just placed in here in this
It's
movie.
like a scene out of Everybody Wants Some. It's really weird. It's
Oh my god. It's just Jeffrey Wright strikes me as the kind of director who like really thinks he understands everything that he's dealing with, which is fine. I think we should have a few oblivious or delusional directors. I think that's healthy for film, but I think he's trying to satirize like horror movies and like the new trendy Kevin Williamson stuff without actually like demonstrating an understanding of those movies. Same with like Twin Peaks and other every influence that we can see in here, like we can see
it's
where it's coming from, but he's not showing that he understood its original intent in the first place. So when he deconstructs it, it doesn't work. He's deconstructing something that isn't connected to it already.
I agree. I think it's partly that not getting the intent of what he's satirizing, or also just that joke has already been done within
Yeah.
like 3 years of this movie's release. Like the very premise of the movie was like a one-line joke more or less in Scream 1. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like it was used in the trailer for Scream. So I mean, I respect committing to the bit, if nothing else. I respect committing to that bit because we got the fucking fuck fest on our hands out of it,
We
which
do.
is one of the
And
most bizarre climaxes of a movie I've seen.
it is such a bizarre climax, or yeah, it is
Yeah,
such a bizarre,
climax. Yeah.
yeah, because it's not like I'm not gonna like rest my laurels on the uncut version, but in the version that we have, that's
Of
most
this,
accessible, it doesn't. It's
the
not
Jeffrey
shot
cut,
well. Like I don't quite understand the logistics of the fuck fest. I don't understand where
because they
certain characters are.
because they don't want to film teenagers having sex in a movie.
I
That's
know I'm
why
not
I'm
saying I need to
unconvinced.
see that. I'm
No,
just
no, I'm
saying
saying
like
that's why
how
they
big is
didn't.
that house? I don't know. There's so much.
So I'm unconvinced there's even more to see in the original cut. There's also a shot where I can't remember so many characters' names in this movie. Her friend who likes the
Yeah.
guy who just is stoned all
Who
the
just
time, and
eats ribs and shit.
yeah, that guy. And I don't even think they have sex. I think they just dance the whole night.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the whole house is empty and it's just them alone in the house
That's
dancing.
what I
And I
mean,
went,
like logistics wise.
where did everybody go? Did they
I have
all?
no fucking clue. There's like 20 different rooms upstairs.
Yeah,
Like,
there's one couple that's in like I actually think it was three people together in like a little pocket cubby in the
yeah,
corner
that's
of
where
the
DJ
house.
Qualls is, which, like, who the fuck DJ Qualls from Road Trip and the new guy in this movie for no reason? What the
There's a
fuck
lot
is
of
this movie?
why why is Michael Biehn in this movie?
Well, I think you put it best. I mean, we all know at a certain point he just like stopped. I would stop too if James Cameron literally gave me like three chances to be a movie star icon and I failed at all three of those
I mean,
chances
I
to
think
connect
he's
with the public.
great, but
I think he's great too, but you're given Terminator, Aliens, and the Abyss. Like you should probably
be
have
A-list by
been.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I think he
he
was great in Terminator and Aliens. I loved him
I
in those.
agree.
I'm just saying he didn't connect with like Arnold connected with an audience more.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. He's definitely an actor like I have a lot of personal attachment to, if only because I grew up watching those movies.
he
But
strikes me as a bitter dude, and this
yeah,
I don't even think he was the first choice for this anyway. So he's probably insulted by that too. Like he wasn't. He's still not being given very good roles.
I said it before. The vibe he has in this movie is I whether it's true or not, he's like, I feel like I'm on a student film set, or like or like I'm on a straight to Hulu movie set.
There's only so far we can go with satire. Like when he's at the house, like like maybe don't satirize or make a farce out of like an intense child abuse.
yes.
Um,
There's a
like
lot in
that's
this that
hard.
I think that they shouldn't have made a joke out of, but they did. Although,
It's
again, we run into the problem of like, do they even think it's a joke? Or if they think
yeah.
it's serious, is that even worse? Which is, I think, the case with some of it,
You see, I
some of the
think
later
that this
films.
should be the new major film discourse, Cherry Falls.
Yeah, no.
It's
I think
what
I've had,
it's,
I don't think, I think we need to be the beginning and end of that one.
what I can say unironically, without any question or without any doubt or without like stretching the truth a little bit. in order for me to say Cherry Falls is a good movie is that Brittany Murphy is good in this movie.
Oh, she's
Um,
wonderful.
she's really good, great energy, great like star charisma. A huge loss. Like I can say, definitely good performance, weird performance. And it is a really unique final girl that like
Yeah,
so far as the qualities of the final girl, like sh if there's anything deconstructionist or postmodernist about this movie that actually works and isn't just like a tone deaf farce or mimicry, it is her performance. Like her,
I,
if you were about to say something, jump into it because I'm
oh, I was
pontificating.
just gonna say, like, I think it says a lot that I still think the character of Jodie is borderline incoherent, and I still loved watching Brittany Murphy in this movie.
Right?
I thought she was delightful. Yeah, I thought she was great.
I think she is incoherent. I can't think of a final girl in history that is as incoherent as she is, that is as unreliable as she is to be around like emotionally. Like I don't know where she's gonna go from one moment to the next because she's impossible to track, to gauge. Like
Yeah,
she's
because like
the
she,
moods
cause
are all over the place.
she really quickly commits to like, no, I'm gonna get back with my ex-boyfriend and go to this fuck fest. You know, like it's she completely goes along with what everyone else is doing. So
Yeah, and
it's very interesting because the final girl is usually like played up as quote unquote different from the other girls, so to speak, or you know, like not akin to like
she
everyone
was
else.
though like almost organically just different because I couldn't tell from one emotion to the next what exactly she was feeling, which I think is a bit more revealing of like I'm giving this this credit to Brittany Murphy, not any direction or like script writing necessarily or the film
Oh, of
itself. It's
course.
like her really, like her idea of a final girl, her idea of playing a teenage girl who's got these weird morbid curiosities about sex and trying to process them or act them out in like performative ways that are ultimately really weird to see actually happen or almost happen. I think it's more in line with growing up. Like your mind changes every 2 seconds as well. Like your
Yeah, fair
motivations
enough.
change. You probably look like a little psychopath,
Fair
like
enough.
with what you're trying to do. Brittany Murphy incredible here. It makes this final girl really interesting to watch, but the farce itself, well, well, uh, I think it might be one of the more wild and probably offensive movies made
Oh yeah.
in this time period.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of movies I've seen follow its example that came after, mostly in the realm of like independently made horror movies that never got a theater release that I've seen, which I've seen probably too many of, kind of follow this pattern of kind of like tone deaf or like inconsistency.
Yeah,
But it I think it's telling that this didn't get a US release because it definitely reminded me more than anything of those kinds of movies I've seen that just exist either straight to DVD or straight to streaming, stuff like that. It has that vibe for me.
absolutely. I think this is a really good film to use as an example for why, like, why Hostel, Saw, and House of a Thousand Corpses had to come around.
Yeah.
Like, look at how far we had gone with the slasher meta joke. Look at how far we went. Cherry fucking Falls.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
yeah, it if anything, it was inevitable that like The Devil's Rejects would come out 5 years later. It was,
right? Oh
which is by
God,
the way a
like,
movie I love, but like it was inevitable that movie, even if like, because obviously there's cultural reasons why that shift occurred. It's not
yeah,
purely
which I would
taste
like to
changing.
go over with you in a different video. Devil's Rejects is like the one zombie movie I wouldn't mind talking about for a little while.
Yeah.
But I would love to talk about the return. I want to say you coined that at least in my brain, but we'll talk about the return.
Oh yes, yes, the return of like
Abandoning
the
abandoning the
exploitation.
trendy teen slasher soap opera for a more classic horror taste or
But in a way,
exploitation.
I did feel there was for a brief moment of clarity in the middle of Cherry Falls, some like 45 minutes in, I was thinking like this does sort of feel like it occupies a middle ground between those two eras. I've seen
We're getting
movie
closer and closer.
yeah, I've seen movies that probably more clearly occupy that middle ground. Like I'd actually argue House of a Thousand Corpses is very like middle way between the two worlds. But
Well,
this
so
is
far
more
as
like
yeah. No, go
this
on.
is no, it mostly just same. Yeah, this is like you start to see the transition occur, I think.
I think that like Cherry Falls happens, so then Slasher as a whole responds with like Final Destination, like, oh, that was a poor joke, and Columbine happened, so I got an idea. We'll do an airplane, but then 9/11 happens, and then they're like, well, okay, we're fucked. Let's just make Wrong Turn, and then like and slashers, and
Yeah.
slashers there. But Cherry Falls. So we also talk about when we get to the end of these videos, we try to talk. I'm laughing before I even say it. This the movie's place in horror history. Um, and I do
It's
think
to be on channels like this.
it's to be on
That's
channels like this. I do think it is like it's definitely the bastard child, the black sheep of like the urban legend screams. I Know What You Did Last Summer's Final Destinations. This is the black sheep that
well,
really no one knows about, talks about, or it has a cult following. It does. It's just
I'm
not
sure it
very
has
large.
something of one. Yeah. I mean, I feel like what we've noted in so many of these movies post Scream like The Faculty or Urban Legend is how precise they feel, how like well composed
Yeah.
like they're well composed studio products is they feel very well put together, well
Cherry
considered, well
Falls.
composed, even when they're not intelligent or maybe not
Yeah.
even appropriate. They're at least like coherent. But
Hmm.
this is the shtick falling apart at the seams almost. It's like
Yes,
really just
this was the house that Williamson built caving in on itself. Like,
it's like we reached the end of Suspiria where everything's on fire and falling apart and we forgot what the plot is and
oh God. But once again, just to be sentimental, its place in movie history is it captures Brittany Murphy at her prime, most aware, and yeah, that's always a good thing.
yeah,
So
no,
that's
I definitely think if people enjoy this era of horror, they'll find it at least something interesting, if only as like a
oh,
curio, but
I would recommend this movie to, I mean, I recommended it to you, but I mean,
yeah,
I would
yeah,
recommend it to most people if they just want something weird to put on one night, like something silly, something fucked up, really.
yeah.
I would definitely do that. Any closing thoughts on this classic?
Did we mention Kenny saying I think my mom must have been a hooker?
I don't know if we did or
That
not.
was also a weird line. Because it was
It
again
goes
in the context of him flirting with his girlfriends.
well, every adult figure is perverse in their own way. The ultimate one being Mr. Marlston. I don't, at least the
But
ones we're around are. Well, I don't know. That's not even true either. They don't even follow through on all of that because that deputy was fine, seemingly.
yeah, she was probably the most normal human being in Cherry Falls.
Yep, and don't you fret at all, because I believe her name was Amanda Anka, and yes, the Blu-ray comes with an interview with her. I know you wanted an interview with her out of everybody in the cast.
One of the B characters from Cherry Falls. That's what I'm
Like,
buying my $25 DVD for.
you couldn't get anybody to talk about it. Like,
You couldn't
oh
get Michael Bean to talk
nope,
about it. He
couldn't
was
get
too
DJ
busy at
Qualls to talk about it. Oh my God, lose your innocence or lose your life. All right, I think this is probably a decent place to end it, Jacob.
I agree.
Oh man.